Reverend. It is my honor to be here with you this morning. I'm glad that we're open, and it's definitely a blessing to be here. So, whether you're here with us or watching us via streaming, we want you to know that we realize that our Unity family is truly priceless. I'm looking out at all the faces that I can see, because I can see your faces, and I don't see any new people, so I'm going to start with the announcements. All right, there is an old-fashioned Unity prayer service from 9 to 9:30 every Sunday. It's held in the library. It's facilitated by Reverend Denise. So it's a place to find peace and understanding, and just know that it's a blessing if you can come. We have a new metaphysical Bible study group starting. It's called the Mysteries of Genesis. It goes from Tuesdays, January 18th through February 22nd. The time is 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. And this is also facilitated by Reverend Denise. And it's done on a love offering basis. On January 16th, which is next Sunday, the temple is having a Tu B'Shabbat. It's the best I can do. Tu B'Shabbat. Dinner at 2 p.m. And we are welcome to join and support them in that endeavor. The cost is $10. It's a celebration of the birthday of trees. So if you're interested in attending this program, please let Reverend Denise know, and then she'll let them know how many of us to expect. And I'm presuming you can either send your $10 in or pay $10 at the door. It does. Okay, that's good. And our prayer chaplain today is Reverend Carol Ricketts. If you want prayer or you need to say prayers of gratitude, she'll meet you in the far corner over there. Be happy to pray with you. Our board member today is Jan Carnes. So questions about the board or about the church, please see Jan. All right, would you please join me in saying our mission statement? Together, our mission is to provide a prosperous and loving community by connecting to God through prayer and following the teachings of Christ. Please join me in saying our opening statement. Together. I stand steadfast in my faith, and I am set free. And let us pray. And we say, Father, Mother God, living, loving presence. It is a new year, a new beginning, and we are ready. Our hearts and minds are open. We are aware of the Christ presence within, knowing that there's nothing stronger, that whatever challenge, whatever problem comes, that we can face it, and know that we shall overcome. We are strong in our faith in God. And we ask this and all blessings in the name and through the power of the living Christ. And so it is. Amen. The daily word is faith. My faith empowers me. The words, I believe, contain tremendous power because they show me where I am placing my faith. If I catch myself believing disempowering thoughts, I don't despair. I use the moment to recommit to my faith in God as one presence and power that is all good all the time. Believing in the goodness of God means I have faith in prosperity, not lack. It means I have faith in health, not illness. Faith in God means I believe all things are possible. Faith gives me the strength and power to live life fully and to let nothing stop me. Believing with all my heart, I affirm the best and highest outcomes are unfolding in my thoughts, my intentions, and my actions. I can do all things that is mine to do, and I will. Jesus said to them, if you are able, all things can be done for the one who believes. Mark 9:23.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Are you ready for my joke?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait all week.
You've been waiting all week? Good. Hopefully I don't let you down. So there's this lovely lady who has 3 very successful sons in life. They're all millionaires. And it's their mom's birthday coming up, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to get mom for her birthday to show their appreciation. Well, the oldest son says, well, I'm going to get Mom a brand new 3,000 square foot house. And the other son says, well, I'm going to buy Mom this brand new Mercedes-Benz. I'll know she'll just love it. Now, the third son knows that Mom has a hard time seeing and that she loves reading the Bible. So he found this exotic parrot that had memorized the Bible, can recite the Bible very easily, and he knows Mom will just love this bird. So she gets all her presents and she's writing her thank you cards, and she sends the first one to her son that bought her the big house. And she says, well, you know, the house is really nice, but it's really way too big for me. And then she writes her thank you card to her middle son, and she says, well, the car is really nice, but I can't really see very well, so I really can't drive it. And then she tells her third son, she goes, wow, I fried that bird and it was the best chicken I've ever had. Okay. Did you like that one, Bob? Was it okay? Alright, so we've been working on faith, and I have a short little story that kind of represents a good example of what happens when we're not in that best place of faith. It says some years ago in Vero Beach, Florida, whales were beaching themselves on the shore to die. Scientists, perplexed, asked themselves, what is going on? Why would these healthy, normal whales beach themselves? The scientists dragged the whales back into the sea to try to save them. But the whales just turned around and came right back onto the shore, wanting to die. The scientists, with the help of underwater cameras, discovered that thousands, perhaps millions, of tiny fish, which were literally overwhelming the whales and were chasing them. Instead of turning around and facing their small enemies, the whales rushed to accept death rather than the fear held in their minds. What a story, right? And I can really see that story sometimes in my life when I get those fears that really don't really exist, so they're kind of tiny. I'm the one that makes them big, right? And I choose to run instead of facing them. Anybody else been in that boat? I'm not the only one, right? So faith is that quality that we have. And we have all the faith that we would ever possibly need. The question is today, where do you put your faith? Do you put it in God? Do you put it in that knowing that everything's going to be all right? Do you put it in trusting God? Because when we see with the eyes of faith, the things of the outer world do not move us. The things that we know and trust will move us. So what do we want to do? I mean, it's so easy to get wrapped up in that outer world, especially if you're listening to the news. I don't listen to the news anymore. And I'm a happy little camper. But the world is out there, and Jesus tells us not to judge by the world of appearance. Because the world of appearance comes and goes. The world of appearance is forever changing. But our faith in God should be that one steadfast thing that we hold on to. So in the New Testament, it's Peter who represents that quality of faith within us. And I think we all know the story where Jesus sends them all out into a boat. and the waters get rough. And then he decides he's going to go out and join them. And we know the story that he walks on water to go meet them. And at first the disciples are scared when they see him. They think he's a ghost because they're not expecting Jesus out there on the water. And so Peter, who represents that faith in us, says, "Lord, if that's you, please command me to come out and to meet you on the water." Now that's that quality of faith that is within us that doesn't see anything as impossible, that knows he can join him, he can join Jesus on the water if the Christ within him commands him to do it. So he's talking about that Christ presence that is within each one of us. As long as we command our faith to work, it will. So Peter gets out of the boat, and lo and behold, he's walking on the water, right? And then all of a sudden, a big gust of wind comes up, and he loses his contact with the Christ, and he starts to sink. And as soon as he starts to sink, that Christ present holds out his hand and lifts him back up out of the water. And he reconnects to that Christ presence within. So look at that story. We can do anything as long as we keep our eyes fixed on that faith that the Christ consciousness within us gives us. We can do anything, no matter whether there's rocky water, no matter if there's a gust of wind. It doesn't look like we should be able to walk on water, but we can. Now, if we want to take this story a little more deeper, metaphysically, the water in this story represents negative experiences that we are going through in life. And if we always keep our faith in God or the Christ presence within us, we can easily walk over them. So this is a miracle I'm sure some of us have already done many times. Had a negative experience show up in our lives, put our faith and trust in God, and easily, or at least smoothly, move through it. We have all done it. But we had to put our faith in God in order to succeed, right? And then it became easy. But when we take our mind off, then we start to sink in the problem. Then we start going down that negative spiral. Oh my, woe is me, my life is terrible. And that Christ within you is always there with that hand out, just waiting for you to return, to look to him, and he will pull you right back up out of that water, and you will move forward. So we all have done this miracle of walking on water. We just haven't realized it. Now also in the Old Testament, there's an amazing story of faith. And we don't hear about this lady very often. Her name is Esther. It's a beautiful story. It's a time when the Jewish people have been, what do we call it, suppressed, or they're not in charge, we'll just put it that way. And there's a King Azarah, did I say that right? Ahasuerus. And he's in charge. And he represents that personal will in us, that ego part of us that likes to edge God out sometimes. And he has a queen when the story starts. And he wants his queen to come out to a banquet and show how beautiful she is to everyone who is there. And she's a very independent queen, and she says, "No, I'm not going to do that." Well, lo and behold, in this time, you can't do that. So he abandons her from Persia, and she's taken off. And so he needs a new queen. And so they gather all these maidens, and he has a big group of people to pick from, and he chooses Esther, who's a very beautiful woman, and he decides she will be his queen. And so Esther, she is Jewish, and Jewish people are not a good thing at that point in time. So she doesn't tell the king that she's Jewish. She keeps it a secret. And her, I think it's cousin, Mordecai, he's the gatekeeper to the kingdom. And Mordecai is also Jewish, but he's there because he has found favor in the king's sight. And he's not a favorite person because there's another person in this story named Haman who also sees favor in the king's sight, that thinks Mordecai should bow down to him every time he sees him. And Mordecai is not going to do that, of course, because he puts his faith and trust in God. So Mordecai ends up hearing through the grapevine that somebody's going to try to kill the king. So he gets word to Esther. Esther tells the king stops it all from happening. So the king is very grateful to Mordecai, and he writes it all down in his book, that this is what Mordecai has done. Well, the next thing Mordecai ends up hearing through the grapevine is that this lovely gentleman, Haman, who can't stand him, has talked the king into killing all the Jews for a mere, I think it's 10,000 talents of silver. So that's the king in his ego, not really thinking about what he's doing, except getting money. That's a great thing. I'm going to get 10,000 talents of silver if I kill all the Jews in my kingdom. And he agrees to it. He agrees to it. So Mordecai tries to warn Esther, and he does. And he tells Esther what's going to happen, and that do not be fooled that you're the king's wife, that you would be spared, because they will find out you're Jewish and you will be gone with the rest of us. So she doesn't know what to do. She's seen what happened to the first queen who tried to do something against the king's will. And there's a rule with the king that you cannot talk to him unless he asks you to come to the courts to talk to him. And she knows it's been 30 days since he's asked her to come talk to her. And if you don't get his permission and you go talk to him and he decides he doesn't want to talk to you, you're killed. Okay? So she has this. She's seen what happened to the previous queen. She knows if the king doesn't want to talk to her, she will be killed. But she also knows her people are going to be killed if she doesn't do anything. So she finally decides, okay, I'm going to save my people. If I die, I die. It's exactly what she says. Do you know what kind of faith that takes to make that statement? To be selfless, to save your people, and trust in God that it's all going to work out when she knows the rules, that these rules are all against her from being successful. So once again, she's not seeing with her eyes, she's seeing with the knowing that God is with her, right? So that's what she does. She has her handmaidens and all the Jewish people fast for 3 days. And what does fasting mean? That means we're no longer eating or partaking in the fear of what is about to happen. I mean, she's taking a big risk. And for 3 days, literally they fast, but spiritually that means they no longer fed themselves the fear of what she's about to do. They had to let it go in order for her to be successful the fear in her heart had to be gone. So they fast for 3 days. And she gets her nerve up and she goes into the courtyard to see the king. And of course the king sees her and he just sees her beauty and he welcomes her in and he holds up his golden scepter, which means she's allowed to speak. So right now the king has tapped into the wisdom. This golden scepter represents that divine wisdom that is within each one of us. And Esther, who represents love, puts her hand on top of it. So they are connected in divine love and wisdom together. And lo and behold, she speaks. She says, I want to have a banquet with Haman and you. And he goes, okay, that's fine. We'll have a banquet. And so they get together and they have a banquet. And the king says, what is it that you want? I will grant you whatever it is that you want. And I'm sure Esther is feeling just a little insecure because she knows she could possibly get killed if this doesn't go right. So she kind of backs down and she says, you know what? I would love to have another banquet with you and Haman. And he agrees to that. Now, Haman is not, he's happy that he's getting to come to these banquets, but he has to walk past Mordecai to get home. And he sees Mordecai and he gets very frustrated that he's just not bowing down to him like he's supposed to. So he goes home to his family and his wife says, well, why don't we build a gallows and tell the king to hang Mordecai in the morning? So this is that negative side of us that's always trying to kill the spiritual higher ideas. The Jewish people in the Bible represent those higher spiritual ideals. That's why they're God's chosen people. Those are those higher thoughts, those ideas within us that know the truth, that know that faith in God is our way to create whatever our heart's desires are. So we always have this committee of negative thoughts that are trying to talk us out of it, right? It's always there. I don't think you can ever eliminate it. The thing is to quit listening to it. So that's what Haman represents. This is all that committee of negativity that wants to kill out this power, this spiritual power that you have. Because it knows once you get power, he's done. He has no more power. You're a spiritual being living in a spiritual world, living by spiritual principles. You are a very powerful person. Just like the whale doesn't see how powerful it is against these tiny fish, you are an amazingly powerful person. It's just that we need to tap into that and quit listening to the Hamans in our head, to quit listening to those negative emotions that want to say, no, you can't do it. You can't walk on water. You can't create your dreams. You can't be free. You have to listen to me. And that's what Haman represents. So yeah, he goes home. His wife tells him, you tell the king in the morning that Mordecai needs to die in the gallows. Now, Esther has put her faith in God. So you got to know that God's working on this, right? That's not what the real plan is going to be. So, lo and behold, that night, the king can't sleep. And he decides to get up and look through his record book to see what has happened. And he remembers that Mordecai saved him and that he needs to honor Mordecai, and that needs to happen. So he goes, well, how should I honor this man who saved my life? And he asks one of his servants, who is in the courtyard? And lo and behold, it's Haman. And he asks him, he says, what do I need to do to honor this man? Because he deserves great honor because he saved the kingdom. And Haman's thinking, wonder who he's talking about. And so he tells him, well, you should give him a royal robe and you should give him a horse and he should be able to ride that horse through the kingdom, knowing that we are honoring him. And so he eventually tells him that this is Mordecai. And you got to know that this man is not happy about that. But he does what the king tells him. He gives him the robe, he gives him the horse, and the whole 9 yards. And then he goes home. And by the time he gets home, it's time for this banquet that Esther has put together again. So he's summoned to the banquet. Right? And Esther comes to the banquet and she says, Lord, if I have your favor, I need to tell you something. And she tells him that he has sent out this law that all the Jews in the land are going to be killed, which means his wife is going to be killed and all her people are going to be killed. Now we have divine love and wisdom together, so you got to know the right and perfect answer is going to manifest. He says, no, I will not let that happen. And he says, and who's the one who's responsible for creating that? And of course, she says, Haman. Oh my goodness, well, he was very upset about that. And what ends up happening is Haman gets hung in his own gallows that he created for Mordecai. What a story of faith. Do you see how God played through that entire story? And even though it didn't always look to Esther that it was all going to work out, I'm sure she was very frightened when she first figured out she was going to tell the king. Yet she stood in her faith, and even though she couldn't do it at the first banquet, she did it at the second one, which gave the king time to look at his book to see what Mordecai had done for his kingdom. So don't you see the divine order in that story? That sometimes when we don't see how life is answering our prayers, sometimes we don't see how our heart's desires are coming into the world, that God has a plan. And sometimes certain things have to happen in order for that to manifest. But we don't see the big picture. It's up to us to stand in our faith, to not be afraid of the unknown. I know that's a big request, but I'm going to try to give you an example that you're already doing it. So when you go to bed or you take a nap, do you know what happens? Are you conscious of what's going on around you? Normally, if you're in pain, you no longer feel the pain when you go to sleep. You don't know where you consciously are during that time. Sometimes you can be having good dreams, sometimes bad. But it is an unknown. And we joyfully go to sleep, do we not? We joyfully lay down to get rest, and we feel recuperated afterwards. But in all truthfulness, you have no idea what happens in that 8 hours that you're asleep. It is a total unknown, and you deal with it every day. So what's the big deal about trusting God and living in that space of the unknown? Because the unknown has that infinite possibility of things that we can't even think of. We can't even think of. Esther had no idea that the king was going to look at the book and see what Mordecai had done for his kingdom right before she was going to ask him to stop the killing of the Jews. She had no idea that was going to happen, but it did. The steps. Sometimes we don't know all the little steps that have to happen for a healing to happen. Sometimes we have to let go of unforgiveness. Sometimes we have to let go of the fear. Sometimes we have to let go of unworthiness. Sometimes we just need to love ourselves. And then we see the miracles happening. But we have to get rid of those little blocks that are in our way to see that happen. So I just find that an amazing story. Esther doesn't get a lot of accolades, yes, but she deserves them. She's a very powerful lady. She went from being someone who was just known for her beauty to being someone who saved her people. So just think about what you can do. You just see yourselves now as somebody, or I do sometimes, I say, that can't make a difference. Well, guess what? I can make a big difference. I just have to have the faith in it. I just have to take action in it. I have to stay in my integrity to the truth no matter what's showing up out there in the world. I stand in my truth, and then I will always feel at home no matter what's going on. Then I can stay in that place of peace no matter if the waters are rough and rocky, no matter what's going on in the world. Faith is the first key to my success in changing the world, just like it was for Esther. It was her faith that saved her people. I just get chills thinking about that. So just think what you can do, what you can create, how you can change the world by putting your faith and trust in that God presence that is within you. I know it's not easy because the world of appearance is out there screaming, just like Hammond in the story, negative things. Oh my God, do you think you can do that? Laughing. Oh, who do you think you are? Well, we know who we are. We are that divine being, made in the image and likeness of God. So it's time that we put our faith in it. It's time that we trust it. It's time that we open our minds to the infinite possibilities that we can create just by trusting God. Even when the outer world looks like it's opposing it, we can stand in our truth and we can make a difference, just like Esther did in the story. When all things were going against her, she stood in her truth. She stood in her faith. She let go of the fear and look at what she accomplished. An amazing, amazing woman. So, boy, I went over my time this time. Okay, so let's take some time for prayer and meditation. So let's just close our eyes. Take a deep breath and let go. Let go of whatever fears, worries, concerns you may have. Because in this moment, we are putting our faith and trust in God. And God is greater than anything that is showing up in our lives or in our world. So we take this time to feel God's power, God's presence is right there within your own mind and with your own heart. God is there. So feel the love, feel the wisdom, and let go of the fear. For God is with you 24/7, and God in you wants your highest good. So we let go of whatever is standing in that way, and we say, yes, I am a divine being, and I put my faith in God. For with God, all things are possible. In God's love, all things are healed. So I choose to put my faith, to put my focus of every day on God and allow the miracles to happen in and through me. So let's take this newfound, deepened awakening to faith into the silence. Let yourself become aware of your surroundings and wrap all that light under the soles of your feet so you're grounded. Whenever you're ready, open your eyes and always remember that God in you is greater than anything. So I put my faith and trust